Welcome to the Mike Knox Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Knox. Wanted to jump in with some current events. The San Jose police union leader was charged with running a massive drug smuggling ring. I just got to say that these unions, and I was in a union for many years, my union bought a $2 million home in Elkwood for a party pad. Basically, they just said they needed a place to store their boogie boards. They're a little far from the beach. So it does not surprise me that the police union here leader got arrested for smuggling drugs. But I do have to say you can still get a job as a parole agent for the state of California. So don't you worry. And she's also 64, so I'm sure you got a nice huge pension coming your way, or you're probably already living on your pension, whatever it is. But just a shame of the city. I was reading when I used to sail, and I hate sailing, but I used to sail with my dad and my parents, and we always went to Catalina Island. And prior to the internet, we would always, the song is 27 miles to Catalina Island, but we would go from Marina Del Rey, so it was 40 miles, and then you're going 7 knots, so it would take you quite a long time. If we could do the math there, it's about 4 hours. But when he originally had his first boat, which I think was like 27 feet, it took 8 hours to get there. So that extra knot or two really, really sped up things. But I would always think of, has anyone swam from the mainland to Catalina Island? And I was looking that up today, and the first person to swim from Catalina to the mainland, it was January 15th, 1927, in a time of 15 hours and 44 minutes. He swam 22 miles. His name was George Young. Can you imagine? In January, so it must have been so cold. That was back, of course, back in the day. He would definitely be one of the greatest generations. But, man, what a champ. I got to look him up and see where his grave is at. I liked this the other day. Somebody was talking to me about the 2-cent penny. I think we should bring this back. So in 1865, there was a 2-cent penny, and I think we could bring that. I think it would be valuable now to bring back that 2-cent penny. And I looked them up, and you can get one on eBay for $1.25, and I'm thinking about doing that. 2 cents goes a lot farther than 1 cent. I think I said this the other day when I bought a Snickers bar. It was $2.50, and I was just like, I just don't even want to eat anymore. And speaking of eating, McDonald's is going to close offices, cancel in-person meetings this week, preparing to lay off corporate staff after the CEO warned of difficult decisions. Yeah, I've got to tell you, your places are disgusting. That's why. I think if any corporate person could walk through any McDonald's, clean the floors. And I said this before when I was there, the last one that I went to, and now I refuse to go to them. Even though I find the Big Mac delicious, I know your Coke is altered with some sort of brain-activated sugar. It's so delicious. But there are ants crawling all over your fountain machine. And I told the manager, and he couldn't give one shit. I mean, he could care less that there were ants crawling. And he'd said that, yeah, I know there's ants crawling on it. He didn't want to clean it up. And so it seems to me there are... I keep thinking in my head, like to my childhood, that there's going to be clean McDonald's and that, they're going to be McDonald's parties again. But they're just, every single one I go into is disgusting. And the more that I go into, the more disgusting that they get. And so, I see why you're closing there, because you're doing a very poor job with your image there. Also in the news, it did not rain today in Los Angeles, but... it looks like it's, I'm going to guess that since it was clear and it was 63 today, it'll probably rain again on Wednesday coming up. The forecast does not say that, but that's my biggest guess so far. And supposedly the snowpack in the, if you ski, is supposed to last until July 4th, which I do remember when I was younger and I skied. I just don't. So when I skied, your pass was like $45, which was a lot of money for me. I'm sure it's like $100 now, but I just don't ski anymore. I tried snowboarding. I think the last time I tried was 27, and it just hurt my legs so much that I was like, at 27, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I don't know what to tell you, but I can't deal with it. And so I do remember snowboarding in July. It would be cheaper. They give you like a cheaper pass to go. You get like an all-day pass. There was another train derailment in where was that train derailment? Montana. So there's been one in Montana. There's been one in South Dakota. Been one in Ohio. I've never seen so many train derailments. It kind of seems like we're gearing up to get rid of trains or something. But it's almost like they're derailing so much that I'm looking at the train derailments and trying to make some sort of letters out of the derailed trains, because are they lacking in train driving courses now or something? Why is it that suddenly everything is falling apart? Speaking of falling apart, the Queen Mary reopened for their tours, and because, I don't know, last year they were like, it's listing and it's going to sink and we can't afford to do anything. And then now all of a sudden it's reopened again. I would definitely say go there. If anybody is your enthusiast for haunting, you're gonna witness something there, and it's just because that ship is so old, and ships have a haunty feeling to them. Boats do, because you're on the water, and there's the sound, the waves will hit the side of the boat and make sounds. And it almost sounds like people, talking or whatever. There's supposedly a ghost that's on there in the pool area. There's supposed to be like a woman that's on the stairs or escalator. But you can go there and look at the ship, and I think it's a good time. I've never been, but I'm telling you to go anyways. I like this little quote the other day: unless your child sells margaritas and tacos for fundraisers, I'm not interested. And I bring that up just because now's the big season for forcing Girl Scout cookies on us, or maybe it's over. But I always just think of, this would be the one time that I'd like to be a diabetic so that I can yell at them, I can't buy your $5 cookies because I'm diabetic. Yeah, instead, I just feel very awkward and uncomfortable, and I try to go out the other door so that I don't have to be accosted by the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts also selling popcorn, and then there were some other kids that wanted to sell me, like, I don't know, candy bars or something like that. But, nobody's out there selling fruits and vegetables, if you've ever noticed that. Husband's death on artificial intelligence. A Belgian woman says that, I guess their chat bot is called Elezra, led her husband to take his own life, which I find interesting, but I could see that. I mean, maybe you're like, I don't have it just for that reason. I don't want it recording my stuff, even though my phone and everything else is recording it. But wouldn't that be bound? I find that this is fascinating. I mean, it's bound to happen where like Alexa starts to talk back to you and give you like bad advice, and then you're talking to Alexa and you're like, Alexa, I'm feeling down, and then Alexa is like, just do it. And so any screenwriter out there, that is a movie waiting to be written right there, where it's the AI that is the end of you, which is very sad. And I do love Belgium, though, and I'm sorry that happened. There are Trump, if you haven't heard, everyone hates him. But I find my take on it always, so he's supposedly indicted. And this is my take on it. You're indicted, but then you decide to go do a rally, and all these, I don't know why people show up to the rallies, but you're paying a ticket, you're a rally, and then supposedly he's got like clears like $14 million for that day, that week, whatever. And so, you guys get to spend your money on anything that you want, but I think he's got plenty of money. I think he's going to be okay. So I chuckle at the fanatics that like are constantly giving him money for, and it's like my, it's like my Uncle Jerry is like, we got him. We finally got him. And he's just sitting there counting his money. And so that is what I find interesting. Also out of New York, the district attorney charged a garage security worker with attempted murder for shooting the thief who shot him twice and was trying to break into the place. And this is where our society has gone crazy, is that the security guard's job, and I did security for a very long time, and everybody treats you like absolute garbage, but when it's your turn to save the place, and somebody comes and breaks in there and then shoots you, and you're just defending yourself, but then you're arrested for doing that. And again, that's why I refuse to ever do security ever again, because I worked security for a cell phone company, and the regional manager would come in and start screaming at the manager there that I was standing the wrong way, because I'd have to stand there at the door for 12 hours. And he'd be screaming, and then the manager would be like, but he doesn't even work for me. He's a contract security guard. He doesn't even work for our company. company. And every time that regional manager came in, he was always trying to find something wrong with me. He didn't like my shoes that I wore. He didn't like the suit that I wore. But I didn't even work for that guy or work for that company. And so I just came up with the thought of everybody needs somebody to blame when they're in positions, especially when you're regional manager. And so he couldn't find anything wrong with the actual cell phone store. So he had to blame it all on security. And, they would tell you, people come in there all the time trying to steal phones. And then they would say, don't stop that guy. But then when the cell phone got stolen, they'd be like, why didn't you stop that guy? And because you told me not to stop that guy. No, you should have stopped that guy. So that's definitely a job where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's never going to change. They're always going to blame security, just like they blame the low guy on the totem pole. But that's what I was going to say about Trump. He's supposed to do a address the nation 8:15 on Tuesday. Why? I don't get unless that fires up some more money for you. What do you possibly have to say? This is just so beyond me and I usually don't ever want to talk about this, but I don't know. Do I tune in to see what it's about? But I think that I've seen a lot of presidents before, and I've never seen a prior president need to address the nation. It's not like, I don't know, maybe Jimmy Carter did when he wanted to tell us about building houses, or Reagan did when he wanted to tell us about jelly beans. But I don't know. It's can I use the word farcical? I just find it extremely. It's a clown show going on. So I guess I do have to watch it, because then I have to tell you how interesting that I think it's going to be. But I still can't get over the people paying tickets to go to the rallies. These tornado victims that are just getting clobbered all over the South and Midwest. There's like 400,000 people without power, and you had dozens of tornadoes that ripped through everything. So we're getting rain here in Los Angeles, and then the Midwest is getting just hammered by tornadoes that come in there, just rip the entire house up. Why people are. My question is always, where do you hide if you don't have a basement or a shelter? Because I would definitely, I would move there for the price of a house. But then if you got a tornado that rips it all apart, I don't know, are your premiums high? So I just, if I were praying, I would pray for everybody there and send some donations over there to those people that are suffering from the tornadoes. A Texas man used his Apple AirTag to track down a person who stole his truck, and then he killed him in San Antonio. And this is my advice to all of you. If a crime is committed against you, that does not give you the right to go commit a crime against that person. Good for you for putting an AirTag in your car. Everybody should probably do that. But you don't then go get to be a vigilante and go hunt and kill that person. Because here's the thing is, I know we get a little excited, especially the police when they pull somebody over and they think they have a stolen car, but the police don't get to shoot you for the stolen car. I know that sometimes they do, but you should not be allowed to then shoot somebody because they stole your car. That's why you have insurance. This guy probably didn't have insurance either. It's probably a Yugo from Yugoslavia. You remember those. Yugo in Culver City, and I can't remember the name of the museum, but I think it's something with communism. And I went there and I was all excited because I wanted to see kind of like communism, like, I don't know, like a apartment complex that was like communism or whatever. And it's just, there's really nothing there. There's a couple like Russian radios that are cool. But other than that, they're doing like other artwork from like, kids in the fourth grade or whatever. And so if you go in the back, there's kind of like a little garden, a very minimalistic garden, but they do have a Yugo there. I think it was a Yugo at least. But that was like the one thing that they were manufacturing in Yugoslavia. And I think that was in the 80s that they had this Yugo that's no longer around. And I should look up to see how much those Yugos go for. But it was, I think it kind of rivaled our Ford Pinto that we had here in the Americas. I was also reading about, I like pool. I don't play pool, but if I had a bigger house, I would buy a pool table. And I came across this article. I thought this was pretty fascinating, but the Frances Anderson was the first female billiards champion from the 1890s. At that time, there were very few women's tournaments, I would imagine. So Frances went from Kansas Frances was from Kansas or Indiana. They weren't too sure, but offered $5,000 to any woman who could beat her and went undefeated for 25 years. She also beat most of the men whom she played against. She was paid well for her appearances, taking on challengers and giving exhibits even in the 1920s, and toured North America. In the 1920s, her nerves and eyes were letting her down, and she was ill. She was not able to play billiards the way that she was, and she passed away only to be found that Frances had been born a man. I find that pretty interesting from that long ago, 1890s, and Frances Anderson made a living playing pool, because I don't know about you, it is hard to make a living playing pool. I remember when I used to play pool a lot, and I wasn't very good. They had a taco bar. It was called 8 Ball in, San Gabriel, I think. I hope it's still there. It was such a cool place. Barely anybody really went there, but this one guy came up to me one time, and he was like, I'll play you a game for $200, and I was like, yeah, no, I have negative $200 in my bank account. This is at the time, I think that minimum wage was like $3. So $200 to me was like astronomical. And I was like, this guy is probably a pool shark. I'm not too sure. I don't have the internet to Google it, but he probably is. And so I passed on that, and I had some more tacos. But I did always love playing pool and always wanted a pool table. But that's the thing about pool, is it's so heavy to have a pool table and to cart that thing around. You've really got to be in one place at a time. There is also another little history bit that I didn't know about, was when James Marshall discovered gold at Sutter's Mill. He did not know what gold was, and he then took that gold to Jenny Wimmer, 1848, to show her, and she was the one that identified the gold, and then that made Sutter's Mill in Northern California go off on the gold rush. But think about that. The guy was the dum-dum, and he didn't know what gold looked like. They had to go to the lady and be like, do you know what gold looks like? And she was like, bling, bling. So that's kind of a fascinating... I think I'm going to write an article about her, because I find that a part of history. To ban Chat GPT. I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if I discussed it, but basically you put in, like, say you want to write a love letter to a gal there at your work, but you just don't know how to write. You write in there to Chat GPT, could you write a love letter to this woman that I like at work? Make it sound like a love letter. Boom, you got a love letter. It is pretty awesome. People are afraid of it. I don't think you should be afraid of it. I think you should invest your time into it, but Italy did not like it, and they banned it. Temporarily, at least. It would immediately block all open AIs, investigate it for compliance with the data protection regulation, a piece of the European Union. The independent watchdog said that there was no legal justification for the mass collection and storage of personal data for the purpose of training for the algorithms. I can see why people would like, you're going to take away jobs or something like that, but you can really tell if, like, say, for example, if you were to drop in like a Jack Kerouac first page, it's not going to sound like Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac's going to sound different than the chat bot. That's my nickname for it. And it's, you're going to be able to tell the difference between that and the professional writer. So I think there's a long way to go. They're definitely there. It's cool. I still want my flying car, but it is good for all of you crazy teenagers out there that are having to write your thesis statement. The highway authorities in Italy, I've never been to Italy either, but I do like the fact that they're shaped like a boot. They are not amused by the antics of an 80-year-old retired resident who loves traveling so much and hates paying tolls. Who does? Of course, his name is Mario. And but he's Nonno Mario, which is grandfather Mario. And he's accused of dodging more than $4,300 in highway tolls by tailgating other drivers through the lanes reserved for people who prepaid. So I was like, well, this is crazy. I don't quite understand that. Well, he had a Fiat, so it's a small car, and he just like nosed the bumper at the car in front of him, and he was able to fly through the gate. And then, of course, I'm sure they were recording it, but it took him a long time to figure out that Grandpa Mario had been going through the unpaid tolls for all these years, and now, of course, he's got a bill for $4,300, and I'm sure, like most of us, that he doesn't have that, because I could not pay that bill either. I'm on Mario's side on this one. Let the guy go. He's 80. Took the radio station run by women off the air, and they are accused, the nation's only station operated by women, of playing music. So if that doesn't take you back 100 years, I don't know what will. You know what? I gotta say, I don't know what your show was called, but it's time to do a podcast there from Afghanistan, and I will be your number one fan, I promise. Protest about this week. A fan of the Dodger dog. They're getting rid of the Dodger dog. Apparently, it's been a staple since 1962, and I've heard for quite some time that they wanted to get rid of it because it was bought by, is it Cornell that bought them out? But it used to be Farmer John. So, like, you would always hear, brought to you by Farmer John, Dodgers. And I used, that was my favorite hot dog. And for a little bit, they had them at AM/PM, Arco, and then they took them away. For some reason in COVID, that is the one thing about COVID that I did not understand, is why they took away hot dogs at convenience stores. It just ripped my heart apart. But apparently they have better things to eat than the Dodger dog. And I'm going to go on record right now and say that entire stadium is going to, the entire industry is going to crumble now because of you not selling Dodger dogs, because everybody wants them. This is poor management. Whoever decided this should be fired immediately, and most likely will be fired, because they, mark my words, they're going to bring the Dodger dog back. And if I stand for anything, it's for that. And I don't even go to Dodger games, but the Dodger dog is a part of LA history and needs to come back. And they're delicious. It goes nothing like I could eat. I've had 8 of them, 8 of them and 2 Cokes. And let me tell you, I didn't regret one single moment of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia never ceases to amaze me. But apparently this man claims that he's a vampire, and I'm not saying that he's not a vampire, but he himself, using his vampire skills, foreclosed on Wells Fargo, hoping to teach others also how they could do it. And that is a class that I would take, because I had Bank of America try to foreclose on my house probably about 10 years ago. And so apparently the way that this works is that when, say, Wells Fargo comes to foreclose on your house, but then you can prove to them. So in this situation, and I've had this happen to me too, where the mortgage will then say, well, you need to use our insurance, our mortgage insurance. And you're like, but I already have mortgage insurance. They're like, yeah, but you have to use ours. And you're like, but I pay I pay $150 a month. Yeah, you're going to have to start paying $360 a month because ours is better. When really it's just theirs. And they want more money from you. And then you're like, but I showed proof that I've had my mortgage insurance. Here it is. They don't care. They're going to, they're going to do whatever they want. So if they don't respond to you, this vampire man, and I guess he probably had a lot of, he had a lot of time during the night. And he looked at all the laws, and there's actually a law in Philadelphia that I believe it's the RESPA law. And yeah, RESPA law, RESPA. Man, I got that right. And that's basically saying if Wells Fargo does not, or any bank does not respond to you within 20 days, then you can foreclose on them. So he did that. He got the proceedings. He actually got the law enforcement involved to serve Wells Fargo in his area, and was able to actually foreclose on their bank. And this guy, I mean, talk about not all heroes wear capes. Well, I guess this guy does wear a cape because he's a vampire. But man, this guy's my hero. And talk about, man, just a champ. And I am going to always, this is one of my favorite articles that I have read, and I am never going to forget this one ever. And that is going to be Thomas Ince, who was a very famous man at the time, and I believe everyone's probably forgotten about him, probably mainly because he does not have a gravestone. But he was born in November 16th, 1880, and he is an American silent film star. Basically, he owned his own studio, and he was born in Newport, Rhode Island. He was the middle of 3 sons, and a daughter raised by English immigrants. His father worked as both an actor and a musical agent, and his mother. So pretty much everybody in the family was in the arts, and he later formed his own unsuccessful vaudeville company, and it was called Thomas H. Ince and His Comedians in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. In 1907, he met actress Eleanor Kershaw, and they were married October 19th of that year, and they had 3 children. He started directing in the 1910 by a chance encounter in New York City with an employee from his old acting troupe, William S. Hart. And William S. Hart's actually got a house in Santa Clarita, and you can go there and tour it. It's pretty interesting. It's kind of an Old West thing, and that's what Ince was famous for, was Westerns. And he found his first film work as an actor for the Biograph Company, directed by future partner D.W. Griffith. And D.W. Griffith was impressed enough with Ince to hire him as a production coordinator at Biograph. This led him to more work coordinating productions at Carl Lamar's independent motion picture company. So pretty much at this time, everybody's vying to like monopolize on everything. You have these stars that are kind of going into owning their own companies. You had Thomas Edison had the motion picture patents company, the trust that was attempting to crush all independent production companies at that time. So Ince's output, however, was looked at as small at the time. So he had big ideas, and he moved to California and basically to get away from the pressures of these big companies trying to, grab at all the other smaller film companies in New York. And he was like, well, California is a kind of a wide open area. Hollywood's basically scrub brush. And so he took a job with Bison Studios at 1719 Alessandro, which is now Glendale Boulevard. And it used to be called Edendale. Now it's Glendale, but more this was it's more of like Silver Lake area. There's still parts of Edendale that you can see, but a lot of like Max Sennett had his studios there, and it's a present day Echo Park. That's what I was trying to think of. So he moved there to make Westerns, and he wanted to direct in those pictures. And so this is one of his quotes is, "The offer came as a distinct shock, but I kept cool and concealed my excitement. I tried to convey the impression that I would rise to the occasion for $150 a week. Very soon afterwards, with my wife, my cameraman, and the property man and actress Ethel Grannon, my leading woman, I turned westward. Together with his wife and a small entourage, they moved into Bison Studios. He was shocked to discover that the studio was nothing more than a tract of land and a four-room bungalow and a barn." So I find that interesting, where he thinks he's pulling the wool over the eyes of people in New York, and they're like, "Hey, we got to get somebody we got to offload this studio in California." And so sure enough, that takes off. Then Ince he starts to first rent the property. It's a 460 acre tract of land, and it's located on Sunset Boulevard at PCH. And so he owned all that property, and it was like a huge Western set, everything that he could imagine. He lived there. He had a house there. You can look back at other pictures. Most of the actors, the background actors, because he's doing Westerns, they live there. And then the actual main actors would, come in to do their parts. But it was like a huge, it was basically its own, city right there on the Pacific Ocean, and you would never know. There should be a marker there, but you would never know. Basically, if you think about where the what's the spiritual? There's like a lake there. It's like the spiritual place. I can't remember the name of it. But anyways, there was also that time there was the Long Wharf, which was shipping could. You could have all of your equipment shipped there. The Long Wharf is no longer there, but everything would arrive either by sea or by land. And so he had a pretty good operation. And before this, the director and the cameraman controlled production of the picture, but Ince put the producer in charge of films from the inception to the final product. So this is when the job of producer comes into play. which to me is very interesting. With this model developed between 1913 and 1918, Ince gradually exercised even more control over film production process as Director General. In 1913 alone, he made over 150 two-reeler movies, mostly westerns. He's also very wealthy. He built a house on the top of Benedict Canyon. It got torn down, but just how much this guy dominated, basically, I don't know, I kind of look at him like the billionaires you would have now. And so he was kind of losing a little bit of his status a few years later, and he was trying to go into business with William Randolph Hearst. And so this is where the story of his death is kind of fascinating. He at the age of 44 was invited onto there's a movie called The Cat's Meow, which is about this, but he's invited onto William Randolph Hearst's yacht, which is called is it called Onetta? I don't know, weird name. And so it's to celebrate his birthday. And by the way, his estate was at 1051 Benedict Canyon Drive, and I've driven up there, beautiful area. And so he took a train ride to San Diego, met up with everybody, apparently suffered indigestion due to drinking almonds and champagne. Then he leaves the ship. He goes and sees a few doctors, summons his family, and then ultimately he dies of what is considered later on deep vein thrombosis, basically like also angina. So 44 is very young to die. So what makes this interesting is that also the LA Times prints a story that he was shot in the head. And so that makes all of the rumors, because the LA Times prints that for one day, that movie producers shot on the Hearst yacht. And basically the story is that William Randolph Hearst thought that he was Charlie Chaplin or somebody else and shot him in the head, and then tried to cover up the story. And then, one of the other rumors is that his wife was gifted where Scientology is, one of the Scientology buildings in Hollywood is at. So there's a lot of history of Hollywood, a lot of history of movie making, a lot of history about wealth, a lot of cover up. But I think that his wife summed it up when she said, "Do you really think I would have done nothing if I ever suspected that my husband had been the victim of foul play on anyone's part?" He asked that his ashes be cremated, and they were scattered at sea. I wish that for such a larger-than-life guy, I think Los Angeles definitely needs some sort of cenotaph for him, and that is why I have always been interested in his story. And actually, Patricia Hearst published a novel in 1996 called Murder at San Simeon, a fictional version of that. Definitely check out that story. Like, subscribe, tell me what else you would like me to see, and I appreciate everybody listening to the Mike Knox Comedy Podcast.